Grow Great is a city government leadership podcast with Lisa Norris and me, Randy Cantrell. Each week we share insights, experiences, and wisdom to help you and your leadership grow great. Our website is growgreat.com.
I'm sitting in my office 3 or 4 weeks ago, and
That office?
in this office right behind me, if you're watching,
Yeah.
the one with the little July 4th gnome.
Oh, is that what that is?
See it
I
poking
the
over my
gnome.
head?
Yeah, there you go.
But I'm sitting in my office, and I get a call. I hear it down the hall, Lisa, because we're a close-knit family up here.
Right.
I poke my head out, and
That intercom called hollering.
yes, it's
Yeah.
hollering in Texas. And they said, can you come down to my office? And it was Bill and Megan
City
and
manager.
Cheryl were walking. Our city manager. So I said, sure, grabbed something to take notes on, went down there. And they said, so-and-so's last day is this week. I said, I do. And the second words were, and we're freezing positions when somebody vacates, right? It's just we're trying to be not bad. We're just trying to be conservative budget. Yeah. We're kind of at the kind of year end. So we're just being careful what we want to fill, getting authorization for each of those, which isn't bad. Probably many cities are doing that with sales tax issues and things. But anyway, so I said, I do know that. And he said, so we thought you would be the great person to take on legislative duties. And I went, okay. Sounds good.
What does that mean?
Haven't done this much before,
Right.
but I said I'll do the best job I can, and tell me what that looks like. And there were some other duties that came with that. Gerald was a gentleman that left. He's going to the commissioner's court or something to help over there. And anyway, but all that it's goes to the point. Our quote today that Randy and I were talking about is be scared and do it anyway. Be underqualified and get in the room anyway. Be messy, imperfect and unsure, but show up anyway. Comfort is the enemy of growth, and get uncomfortable. And for me, many of you that have heard me on this podcast before have heard me say, I'm confident. I'm not arrogant. I don't have a high ego, but I'm confident in my ability to get things done and learn. And I'm not afraid because I wanted the challenge in this role for the last 2 years of being outside of HR and learning things that I did not know about. And I call it sparking my brain. It gives me a spark. It almost energizes me to learn new things. And what better way to do that than through legislative items? But what that means is getting with lobbyists, meeting the senators, meeting the representatives in our districts, understanding laws, understanding when hearings are happening, and sharing with our team. So I did this like a fraction at our state HR group. I helped provide notices or showed up to a hearing once. So I knew about it, but I certainly didn't have this layer of knowledge. And for all I know, maybe I was the lowest person on the totem pole and I was the pick. I don't know that, right? Because I'm new in role. But also, I felt privileged to be given the opportunity knowing that I had no knowledge in it. So I feel like there's some faith in my ability to get it done. But of course, that generated lots of questions. All that to be said, I'm a big proponent of we cannot grow when we're comfortable. This requires and demands that I step up and learn it and be pretty aggressive because we are upcoming on a legislative year and I'm going to have to understand impact. And then not only that, I need to be able to understand what the lobbyists are doing, what TML is doing, Texas Municipal League. And that's a group that helps us as cities know what's on the legislature and support cities. If you're listening and you're outside of a city government. But all of those things, you can either take them as a threat and question it, or you can look at it as an opportunity for growth. And that's exactly what I did here. It's critical. It's exciting to me. But you have to have the perspective and be willing to grow and be uncomfortable in order to grow. And I almost can guarantee now, I'm going to have missteps. There's going to be things I don't know, I didn't know to do. And I think that's okay. As long as I've got, and what I mentioned to them at the time, I said, I'm absolutely willing to do this. It is brand new territory for me. And I'm going to need a little support and direction along the way. If you're willing to do that, I'll be successful in the role. And of course, they all were like, yeah, well, we'll help you however you need to. And they have. I've had a lot of questions, but be uncomfortable. I think that's the key today, is be uncomfortable if you truly want to grow, and don't be afraid of what's in front of you. Just take the step of faith.
Yeah. Being adaptable at learning, I think is a horribly underrated skill, and maybe not talked about nearly enough. Our ability to learn, and it's easy to get stuck in complacency because, okay, HR. Not saying that you didn't see anything new, but the likelihood of you seeing something new really frequently, because you'd been doing it for decades. Mm-hmm. So that's great. That could be a good place to be, but I don't know that it's a good place to stay. So my question would be, so you get thrown this curveball to tackle an area that you've never covered before. And what have you learned?
So far?
What are you learning? Not specifics, but what are you learning about your approach to taking on something that, to be true to the quote, be scared and do it anyway. So a little scared might be too strong of a word, but
yeah,
a little bit fearful, a little bit apprehensive, maybe a little bit anxious, but diving in and doing it anyway. Your approach now compared to how you may remember doing something like that 20 years ago, I would dare say that the muscles, for lack of a better word, the muscles required to take on something new, to learn something new, are way better today than they were for you 20 years ago.
Absolutely. You have life experience is so important. I've been thankfully able over my career. I think mentors are a huge part of this, and people that surround you, that you trust, that you can seek wisdom if you're willing and humble, right? If you have humility and are willing to ask for help and guidance, that has proven up over time for me over my career, that allows me to not be afraid to question things and to confirm understanding. So my life experiences over the course of my career helped get me to a place of confidence, even for something that's unknown, where 20 years ago I would call it greater fear, but same confidence. Does that make sense? And I say that because there was greater fear because I hadn't lived out and I didn't want to fail. I no longer have a fear of failure now, like I did back then, because I'm confident.
So is it easier to ask for help today than it was 20 years ago? Is that part of it? I mean, help me understand.
I don't think that. I don't honestly think that played a part for me. I think that can for many, but even as a kid, I had confidence. I was unafraid to try new things. I wasn't afraid to fail as much. But in a career, when you've got people accountable to you and for you, there was a fear that I wouldn't get it done well. And now, having gone through life, and it's been fortunate to be all here at the City of Grand Prairie, you're allowed to make mistakes. So there's comfort in knowing that I'm not going to lose my job for doing something I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do. Many people may not be in that boat. They may have a boss that critiques and criticizes every mistake, and you're afraid to even take a step forward without permission. I'm not like that here. And this has been my whole career. So I may be in a little different boat.
So you've never had that, what I call the teenager syndrome of, I know.
No.
And not asking.
Not for me.
And not asking. Well, that's good. That's good. And I only bring it up because I can promise you that we've got people listening who absolutely have suffered it. Yeah, my advice would be get way past that if you can. Well, any of us
you have to know the
kids,
culture.
The teenager, you're trying to tell them something. I know, and they don't have a clue.
No.
but they just
Yes.
but they just don't want to. They don't want to ask for help. So that was the reason.
No,
that I asked.
hence the reason I told them I have very limited knowledge in this,
Yeah,
so I'm
yeah.
going to need support.
Yeah.
And I made it clear up front for me, but I'm not afraid to take the step.
Right.
What I am most fearful of now. In fact, I went into my boss's office today and I said, "Listen, I'm getting all these legislative notices weekly of these hearings coming up. Am I supposed to be doing something with those?" And I said, "There's one next week," and she goes, "Well, just call them and ask them if it impacts the city," because she said, "I don't know either." And so now it's one more thing that I'm okay. Now I know when these come out, I need to go get with the lobbyist group and check, does that impact us? And do we need somebody down there to testify or not? Or were you doing it on our behalf? So it's one more piece of knowledge in that puzzle, in that whole puzzle. And we talk about humility. I have to, this is a great opportunity for the leadership recipe and practice, because I had to have humility to ask. Mm-hmm. And curiosity I had to be willing, knowing I'm not the smartest person in the room. And then I had to go ask Cheryl going, this is probably a very dumb question. I know there's a hearing next week. I don't know what to do with that.
Right.
But, because they gave me all these people. I mean, I sat down with the gentleman who did it before me, and he just gave me a list of like all the state representatives, all the senators, all the commissions and ad hoc committees he's on. And so what am I doing? I'm reaching out going, Gerald's no longer with the city. He was on this committee. Do you need help? Do I need to be stepping into that? Right. And of course they're reaching back going, oh, we'll have lunch. Let me tell you what your part is, or if we can get somebody else, or you can serve in that role. So I'm just beginning to set up the relationships, because I think relationships are huge.
Absolutely.
I call them credits. You get credits.
That's right.
You need to build up your credits, because there's a time you may need to use a credit and have somebody help you, right? So relationships are huge to me, and it's just starting to set those up. So for me, that's been a big opportunity. And talk about uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable, but I'm not fearful.
Yeah. Were you earlier in your career fearful? Or have you always kind of had this kind of confidence where, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll figure it out. I'll get it.
Yeah, I was pretty much like that kind of kid. I'm pretty much now.
Me too. Do
I get frustrated? I'm not afraid to try anything. I'm not afraid to fall down 5 times. I'll just get up 6. Sure. I just figure, okay, those 5 times didn't work well. Let's try something different, And I'm not so oblivious to the fear of failure not to try something again, nor I don't just do stuff just to I didn't just keep throwing stuff out there. Like I put thought into what I'm going to do to say, okay, that didn't work. How can so I'm trying to achieve this. That didn't work. What can I try that's going to bring those two together? So I'm thoughtful in the next action.
Yep.
I'm not just
strategic.
Yes. I'm not. I'm trying to think of the word, but I can't come up with the word I need. But anyway, I've always been confident, Randy, as a kid. You said you were too?
Mm-hmm. Well, just the confidence of, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but I can figure it out.
I'll be fine.
I mean, what advice would you have for people that aren't wired like us, though? For the people that are genuinely, to the point of this quote, they're scared, but do it anyway. But there's an awful lot of people that the fear stops them. I mean, they're just dead they're just dead in the water because of the fear. And to them, you would say,
well, there's 2 important aspects to that, and I've had both occur. One, you need to have somebody you trust their opinion and their wisdom, and talk it out with them, because in every set of circumstances, those circumstances can change the way I deliver guidance. In other words, if they came to me and said, hey, I want to do X, and there's risk in that, my next question would be, well, are you in a culture or environment that supports it? And if they say, no, we get condemned for every mistake made, and I've seen them fire people, that's going to be completely different guidance I give them on how to be successful through that than I might give to somebody like me who says, we've got a great culture that forgives mistakes and they want us to take risks. And they're okay with us taking risks. Just try it. If it doesn't work, we'll try something else. Those are two different completely sets of guidance I would give. So one, call somebody you know and trust that has good wisdom and understands and will ask a lot of questions. Two, don't be afraid to take the step, but be thoughtful in the step that you're taking. Whatever that is, you need to think about the direction you're heading with what you've been asked to do. And I would say don't be afraid to fail. Just be wise in the path you're taking, because we're all going to fail. We're all going to fail at something. It's falling and getting back up. That's what counts. You just got to keep getting back up.
Well, since we are a podcast about leadership, I just don't know any way. I don't know any way to be a great or be an effective leader and be scared.
Right.
If I knew of a way to do that, I would absolutely share it and I would tell you, but I don't know of a way. I don't know of a way to do that. I may not have any great sage advice on how to not be afraid. My best advice probably is what I've given over and over and over. Have the courage to ask the question, what's the worst thing that could happen? But better yet, have the courage to answer it.
Right.
Everybody asks the question. It's just this proverbial, well, hey, what's the worst that can happen? But very few people I have found take the time or have the courage to answer it. So go ahead, take the time and be courageous enough to answer it. What's the worst that can happen? In my work as a coach, the last thing I want to do is advise somebody to be bold, maybe a better word than brave, to be so bold that they potentially step on a career landmine.
Yeah.
That doesn't help. That takes you out of the game. So let's not do that. But does it mean that you should just be paralyzed with fear? Well, that doesn't work either. So we just don't want to make mistakes that we can't recover from.
That's right.
And if we ask the question, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? And I've asked this question of clients for years, and it usually goes something like, will they fire you? And very quickly, 100% of the clients go, no. I mean, they're not going to fire me. Okay, so they're not going to fire you. Okay, so we can take that off the table, which means we can take losing the house off the table, which means we can take probably losing our marriage and the kids and our home life.
Yeah.
So we can take all that off the table. Okay, so now what's the worst thing that could happen? They going to demote you? Oh, no, they're not going to. They're not going to. Okay, well then what are they going to do? What is it they're going to do? And usually when we talk through that, we realize the worst thing that could happen, that imaginary thing, that's not even in the realm of possibility.
Yeah, that we get it in our head. We let our head get it.
Yeah.
We get into our heads, and it dictates our response in that moment. And you got to get it out of your head.
Yeah. Well, and I think what you said is worth repeating. The confidence, you can be scared about the specific thing. Okay, so legislative affairs. Duh. Well, okay, never done it. But you've got enough confidence in yourself. I will maintain, where else are you going to have your confidence? I mean, that's what confidence to me is. It's confidence in our ability. Is it confidence in your ability when it comes to legislative affairs? No, it's your confidence in your ability to figure that out. It's your confidence in your ability to learn that and figure out a way to do that job, that work for the city effectively. Then if you move on to the second part, be underqualified and get in the room anyway.
Right.
Have you tell us about how you feel and how that's been impactful for you? Well, take legislative affairs. You clearly are underqualified when it comes to having that specific knowledge right now, but you are not underqualified in that you are a managing director, you are part of CMO, so in that regard, and you've got plenty of skins on the wall in being in this space as an HR director for a long, long time. So to say you're underqualified, okay, specifically when it comes to this narrow lane, maybe you're not yet qualified, maybe you're underqualified at this moment, but you're not really underqualified. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I lean more into the, not so much in the underqualified. It's the quote, be underqualified, but get in the room anyway. I can probably tell you initially in this new role in October, I battled in my head being underqualified once I got into it for several weeks because I knew nothing. I couldn't contribute anything to and the conversations you're trying to absorb what they're talking about. But I've come out of a role I've been in 28 years, moved into a new role, and you're trying to navigate the how and what. Like, how am I going to do this? And what am I going to do? And who am I going to do it for? And just generally, what am I supposed to be doing?
But wasn't a big
right?
part of that just the fact, I mean, here's this is a completely different, brand new role for you.
Yeah, it's a new role in the city, so it's not even defined. There's not even a job description for it, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, but when you talk about underqualified, that's probably a moment in time where I was like, man, I don't know what I'm doing. Now,
how long did that last?
A couple months, probably.
Okay.
I mean, a couple months I struggled with that. And I think you and I might have even talked a little bit about,
yeah, but you figured it out relatively quickly.
Figured it out. Yeah. But again, I had confidence to figure it out, but did it get in my head and I felt underqualified versus the people in the room? Of course. I absolutely felt underqualified in that moment.
Welcome to the human.
But they had confidence in me.
Right.
That helps over time. Sure. You sometimes have to go, am I doing a good job? I mean, am I okay?
Yeah.
And they're like, what are you talking about? Of course you're doing a good,
right.
But it's just, it gets in your head and you get these feelings in a moment that drive and overpower all the good things you've done for days, weeks, months, years. It just gets in your head for a minute. I was able to get out of that pretty, a couple months, I say it's pretty quick. And I didn't struggle with it every day, but there was just like, man, I've got to figure this one out too. I don't know what I'm doing. For me, it was more the be messy, imperfect, and unsure, but show up anyway.
Yeah.
So for that's probably where I land more times than not when I don't know something.
Okay.
When I don't know how to do something at the farm, learning the tractor.
Yeah.
I'm unsure. I have no idea what I'm doing. It is definitely messy when I was mowing for the first time.
Yeah.
I'm cutting up the ground. I lost a bolt because I got too far in, in the dig. Those are the kind of
scared,
things.
But Don, her husband, he was terrified probably.
He stayed very far away from me. It was just, babe, turn off,
Out there with flags trying to get you. Yeah.
But that imperfection really, I think so many people place judgment upon themselves and it does stay in their head and they defeat themselves. Mm-hmm. That's what I see and have seen over my career as a leader, of this constant, you want to build your people up. You want to instill confidence and provide encouragement. And I would see that getting in their heads is probably the number one thing I saw. They'd have a failure, feel like they've let somebody down, feel like they screwed something up for you, put you in a bad place as a leader. Agreed. I mean, those are the things that I'm constantly trying to get them out of their head. And don't worry about it. It's a mistake. So what do we do next? How do we resolve that? And you have to help move them through that and out of that moment to hopefully instill the confidence over time that you do know what you're doing. But it's okay to be messy and imperfect. I keep saying imperfect.
Yeah.
I promise I haven't had anything to drink today over lunch.
Speaking of imperfect pronunciation, we both
That's right. That. But in those moments, for me, it's okay to be messy. I don't know what I'm doing right now in legislation, but I'm starting to. I create a plan. That's how I get myself organized. I go, okay, now what do I need to do to get my arms around this beast?
And what does that do for you?
It builds the confidence. At least I know what I'm doing, and I can. If somebody asks, well, here's what I've done so far. Am I missing anything?
Right.
I don't want to wait for somebody to tell me. I'm just not that kind of girl. I need to figure out what works for me in my style.
Yeah.
Put it on paper, get a plan and start following it. And then weekly, I just follow up with Cheryl or Megan, who does, she was a lawyer for years.
Right.
And this is what I'm doing. Now, what do I need to do with this? This is an unknown. Mm-hmm. And it'll evolve itself. They gave me teen council. No idea what they do at teen council. I have the mayor called Bill. Bill said, Lisa, can you do the teen council? I said, sure. what do you need me to do? And he's like,
Sure.
I don't know.
What is the teen?
Yeah. So,
right.
and Bill didn't know what was done. He just knows
Right.
it's a group of kids. So I contacted the school district, figure out, did somebody over there do the teen council with the city? Because I heard it's a GPISD. They're like, let me find out. And so now we're connecting and figuring out, what did you do? What did we do? What do we need to do? Because I heard it was kind of a cluster and we want this to be great. Right.
But see, that's the other thing. I mean, there's the outcome of, what you've heard me say repeatedly, that naive curiosity that you can bring to it, because it's not in your wheelhouse. You don't have a ton of experience at it. So you can be brave enough to ask every stupid, seemingly idiotic question that, frankly, probably nobody's asked in a long time, and it probably should have been asked a long time ago.
Well, and what I love is, our city manager's like, can you just do this for us? I said, sure, I'll figure it out.
Right.
And we'll make it great between the school district and I. That's what I have confidence in. Love kids.
Yeah.
Love working with kids. So this is a great wheelhouse is kids, my wheelhouse, but not teen council. But I'm going to mold them together because I love the city and I love kids.
But
so
it's
what
also
a great
a
opportunity.
collaborative effort with the school system and whoever else is involved. So
again, relationships.
It's not like you're all by yourself trying to do this.
And I haven't had to work with the district, right? And then they had me meeting with a college that's looking at Grand Prairie. And we don't have a college here. And we're in the meeting. Cheryl goes, Lisa's going to be the point on this. And I went, okay.
Good to know.
But it's great, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, you just got to embrace what you're given without hesitation, because what greater opportunity is there than somebody trusting you to give you something you know nothing about? That alone instills confidence.
Yeah, and there's a reason. They
didn't have to brief me. They didn't need to know. They just said, Lisa will be a point on this. And I'm like, you bet I will.
Yeah, but that's why. That's why because your willingness is off the charts, and you're going to dive in, and you've proven you've got history of having figured out new stuff. And the more you try new stuff, come on, it's the reason my favorite quote is, everything is hard until it's easy. So you're scared until you're not scared.
That's right.
You're uncomfortable until you are comfortable. You're underqualified.
Now, am I uncomfortable right now? I'm uncomfortable.
Sure.
I'm very uncomfortable, but I believe in myself and I believe in the city to help me do it. Now, I'm probably going to make several mistakes along the way. I'm sure we'll have a good podcast one day on a topic that I have failed on, that people will be able to laugh about, and you and I will be able to laugh about too, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be that moment that I'll get to share.
And go back to what you said earlier, because I think it's worth pointing out, because every effective leader that I've ever known has a great quality, and that quality is amnesia. When it comes to, I messed up, or I got this wrong, or I made a bad decision, or even standing up in front of a group of people before you've made a decision and saying, here's where we're at, I don't have a clue what we should do. And asking the team for their input, and to not dwell on that as some shortcoming that you've got, and letting that just completely derail you for any period of time at all. Pick your sports metaphor, whether it's a pitcher that just gives up a home run, or an NFL quarterback that throws an interception that goes the other way for a touchdown. You've just got to forget about it and move on. That's right. You've got the ability to do that. For somebody that may struggle with that, you got any words of wisdom? Put you on the spot.
No, you're okay. I would, if you struggle with that, you just cannot be afraid to fail. To me, the failure in the moment, not long term, the failure in the moment is picking yourself back up and moving forward for progress. Period. If you can do that, I think that you will grow through those moments. You just can't stay in the dirt, right? If you just stay in the dirt, you can't move forward. You got to just get back up, brush your knees off. Yep. And just keep going, because progress can only come through, I call it, a little bit of pain and a little bit of suffering and a lot of knowledge. And then all of a sudden you're stronger because of it, looking back every time. I cannot think of a time where I was uncomfortable and grew, and can't go back now and say that was a pivotal moment for whatever it was, in my knowledge, in my leadership. We remember those moments every time.
And most of those moments, though, in our career, they may be pivotal, but in the grand scheme of things, those moments that you got it wrong, quickly forgotten about.
That's right.
Quickly forgotten about. I would add to it, own it, be responsible. I always get pushback. Well, but it's not my fault. Nobody's talking about fault finding. We're not talking about blame, but we're talking about being responsible. It's your life. It's your career. Just own it. There is no downside to owning it and then trying to figure it out and move on. As we are recording this, forget the politics of it, but the Secret Service leader, she finally, under great pressure, stepped down and resigned. To her credit, she stepped out and said, the buck stops with me. I don't know all the politics of it, but just from a leadership perspective, and I realize that there's politics at play, and I realize that there could be other powers
factors,
other powers that could have been in play with her situation. But saying that the buck stops with you and then putting in motion the things that you're going to do to fix said problem, it factors in. I would say that Lisa is tasked with these new things because her leaders know she's going to figure it out. If she does mess up, she's not going to be throwing anybody else under the bus. She's not going to be making excuses. She's going to own it. She's also going to come up with some plan and tell them, okay, here's what happened. Here's what went wrong. Here's what I'm doing to fix it. Is there anything I'm overlooking, anything I'm missing, anything else that you guys would want me to do? They know all that. And the reason they know all that is because she has had opportunities and she has demonstrated it. So I would argue that some of your failures in the past have likely prompted leadership to have the confidence in you to give you something completely brand new, something that you could be fearful about, something that you technically could be unqualified for in this moment, something that is going to be imperfect, something that is going to be a little bit messy, but they know you're going to show up anyway because you've got a history of doing that.
Yes, and as a leader, the things that have frustrated me most over time, and I don't know about you, Randy, is I call it the excuse makers. Instead of growing when you're uncomfortable, there are some people that just everything is an excuse, and it's never about them. It's the environment wasn't good. I didn't have staffing. I didn't have people. In that moment, something else was going on in my private life, there's always something. And they're also sometimes the first to say, I'm not trying to provide an excuse, but I'm like, don't quit starting the sentence with that.
But I've got
because here comes one.
About 1,000 of them. Yeah.
So here comes one. And I think, for those moments, I think that it's really critical. You own it. Like you said, you just need to own it. You need to recognize where you have gaps, be humble, and ask for help when you need it. That's what's critical moving forward. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to fail, because we grow the most when we're uncomfortable. So get uncomfortable if you haven't already.
Thanks for watching and listening to Grow Great, the City Government Leadership Podcast. For Lisa Norris, I'm Randy Cantrell. Be well, do good, grow great. The website is growgreat.com.